there, Lifter Uppers. I'm Deb Krier, the co host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer impacted people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. Well, today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to discuss seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD, and the correlation with cancer. So now, here is the host of Cancer and Comedy, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, Deb. Good to be with you and all our lifter uppers, the people who are part of our cancer and comedy community, who have just said that we're not going to let life beat us down completely because we have cancer or some other adversity in life to face. That we're going to face it and we're going to deal with it in such a way that we are going to overcome it no matter what the outcome of our diagnosis is, that we are not going to be go down a dark spiraling place. And so that's what we do here at Cancer and Comedy. We like to help people move from the grim of the reality and the grim reality of cancer or some other bad thing in your life to what we call the grin of fulfilled life. That is having some joy in your life, no matter what your circumstances are, and not letting me dictate by your circumstances. We'd like to do that by developing our community here. So if you want to be a part of our community here at Cancer and Comedy, you just head over to cancerandcomedy.com/follow. Well, Deb, how about a couple of kind of farm-related bad dad jokes today? You ready for these?
I'm ready for farm related bad dad jokes.
What did the mama cow say to the sleepy baby cow?
I don't know.
It's past your bedtime.
Cute. Cute, cute.
One more farm-related one. What has 1,000 ears but cannot hear? A cornfield. A cornfield.
Cornfield, of course. Of course. Well, as we know, following our conversation, you're going to want to stick around because we will have another one of Dr. Brad's bad jokes of the day. But then, of course, we turn serious with the very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, as mentioned, we would love for you to be part of the cancer and comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow Cancer and Comedy at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
But Deb, today I just want to talk to you about winter. Okay, we are recording this in winter time, and I was talking to somebody at my church not too long ago, and they were saying, "Oh, all this snow and ice and darkness is just getting me down," and reminded me of something that I'm aware of, and part you are too, I know, called seasonal affective disorder, which is a real thing. And basically, I live in Indiana, and we had like a foot of snow a few weeks ago, and as we speak here today, we still have snow on the ground, even though temperatures have warmed up a little bit. And that's the kind of thing that can get people down. It's a real thing called seasonal affective disorder. And I think it's certainly more, and people from my part of the world often go places like Florida and other places like that to kind of get away from it and to get a little sunshine in your life. And my wife and I took a vacation to Florida just a few weeks ago. And guess what? In Florida, it was still overcast and rainy, and the temperature was in the 40s. And the people in Florida were saying, "No, where's the sunshine?" And the people we met there, the locals, were not happy about it either, even though it was a chilly side. It was better for us, of course, but it was still overcast. So you can't really get away from it in some uh, regards. But we're going to talk today about, this is a real thing, seasonal affective disorder. We're going to talk about it kind of when you stack this on top of something like cancer or some other adversity that can kind of be kind of kind of a stacking or a multiplication effect that can really bring you down. So give me your kind of effect. First of all, do you think SAD, seasonal affective disorder, is a real thing? And I know you're originally from Colorado. Do you ever think, has it ever been a part of your experience in any way?
Oh, it definitely has. I've known about it for many, many years. Over 30 years, I worked for a company. We were government contractors. And because we were a top secret facility, we had no windows. So the
Hmm.
entire building, no windows for everything. And in the winter, of course, you went into work and it was dark, and you came out from work and it was dark. And we noticed that people got crankier and crankier and crankier. And so, researched it and discovered that it was because we were not exposed to sunlight. And so they said you must go outside for at least 10 minutes every day. And that was enough to kind of reset your internal clock. And then they did install some of the special lights and things like that that kind of mimic sunlight. But yeah, I've known about it for many, many years.
Well, it is, as you mentioned, being a government facility, and I've certainly been in some places that didn't have windows. In fact, one of the reasons I'm in my home office as we speak right now, and I've designed my home office so I have big picture windows that shine light basically right in my face,
Right.
all day long, and then I have other lights in my space too, and it helps a little bit, just to know that daylight is out there. It's a real deal. It's a real disorder. It's not just the winter blues. It's not just, something here. It's actually in the DSM-5, which is the clinical diagnostic tool that psychologists use. And its symptoms include low mood, fatigue, oversleeping, carbohydrate cravings. That's one of my bad ones there. Social withdrawal and difficulty concentrating, or just kind of feeling about bummed out. And so it's a diagnosed,
Cancer
treated.
also, right?
Yeah, and all those things, as we've noted many times in our podcast, are part of the cancer magnification. Those don't help you as well. But I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is I heard somebody say, or one of the research I was doing, that a and cancer can make a brutal tag team, and that can do uh, because cancer can lead to depression in its own right, and anxiety, fatigue, those same things, a compounding effect. So it's really no joke. So we need to kind of take this seriously about what can we do about it, that kind of thing, and especially for people who may not have the opportunity to live in a place like Florida or someplace else like that. What can they do about it? Do you have any thoughts about coping strategies that people may have, or to help to deal with this?
Well, the first thing is to acknowledge that it's real.
Hmm.
It's not in your head. It's not, "Oh, just a temporary get over it" type of thing. It is real, and then, when we know something is real, we can deal with it. And I think that's probably one of the most important things, and people might tell you, "Oh, it's really nothing. You'll get over it. The sun will shine again." I mean, all of those silly things, but no, you need to recognize this is something that can actually turn very serious.
Yeah. Another part of this I think it's important to us to note is this fact about isolation. When you're
Mhm.
sick and when you have cancer or some other bad adversity in your life, you can feel isolated, kind of either stuck in your bedroom or whatever the situation is, stuck at home, uh, dealing with, kind of your mind can play tricks with you, and you can go to the poor me place and spiral downward if you don't allow it to. And then when the physical reality is such you can't get out so well. I mean, at my house, we were stuck for 2 or 3 days before we got dug out of the snow. We had a foot of snow here, and then, a good friend of mine lives in Louisiana, and they had ice and snow in the town he lives, and they don't do ice and snow at all. So he was without power for 8 days at his
Right.
home in Louisiana, and they had to deal with, they had to, come up some ways to entertain themselves and to stay warm and things like that weren't used to doing. And so for cancer patients, the isolation of cancer is exacerbated by this. And so, as you said, the acknowledgement of this can be uh, important to do. And it also limits our social activities, like if we do get out and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So, let's talk for a minute about some of the practical ways that people are dealing with it. You mentioned one that I thought was interesting. I didn't really know from our experience that you'd worked in some sort of a government facility with just no windows and so on. And it sounded like they brought in lighting. And I know that light therapy is something that people do, and
Yes.
sometimes there
Yeah,
actually aren't there special lights designed to kind of help
there
with
are,
this?
yeah, just ask the people that live in Alaska. right?
Oh, yeah.
They all have the special lights because, they've got 20 plus hours of darkness a day, and, and you can get them in a variety of things depending on what your need is. In a big building, we replace a lot of the fluorescent lights with
Mm,
kind of this yellow glow type of light, but, it can be just something as simple as a light bulb that you change in the lamp by your desk or by your bed.
yeah.
And it's a more yellow light, but, don't just get a yellow light. There are special lights for this.
Yeah, that some people think, light bulbs, yeah, that's just some gimmicky thing. Well, not really, 'cause, you get the vitamin D and such you get from light and, is a helpful thing. There's as I've studied health, procedures for, you know how it is. When you have cancer, you study all kinds of health stuff, right? Yeah, you go to Doctor Google and all that kind of thing, and there's certainly one of the protocols that I've adhered to is you try to get outside for even a few minutes every day. Even if it's cold and you can get outside for just a minute or two, uh, to get a little actual sunlight on you, helps. I know for my wife, Debbie and I, we try to, if it's decent weather at all, we go for a walk and, for half hour or so to an hour, and that helps. So light is important, and maybe it's even finding a window nearby in your home that's kind of open to the sunlight, and maybe just kinda just look, expose yourself and don't look away from it, look into the light, look into the light. But,
Right. Well, and open your curtains. Maybe you are bedridden, but
yeah,
open the curtains. Have someone open the curtains so that it's, we know it is important to be getting our rest and things like that. But it is also important to get that sunlight. And so open the drapes. Whatever it is, bring that light into the room.
yeah. Instead of it's a sad, diagnosis, it messes up our circadian rhythms, so that can mess up our sleep patterns. I, like you, know people who, live in Alaska, and they, Uh, you know, because in Alaska, they have, much of the year is almost totally light, and much of the year is almost totally dark. So they have to be very intentional about their body rhythms, circadian rhythms, and that type of thing. And so I think this says that if we're mindful of our health and people with cancer and things like that, we do have to be mindful of this. We have to be mindful of the total health perspective. It's not just the actual medical treatment, whatever it is, that we'd have, but actual take care of our bodies and so on. And so another treatment I think is out there, and or another way to respond to SAD, and it's being combined with cancer is indeed vitamin D, and how there are folks who have many people have vitamin D deficiency. And so it's important to be intentional about that, about getting your vitamin D, not only from sunshine, but from other means as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can obviously be taking supplements. Now, if
Hmm.
you are in treatment, check with your
Yeah,
doctor
of course. Yeah.
because too much vitamin D can also be an issue. But yeah, the next time you have some blood work done, ask them to test your vitamin D level and just see what that is, and then go from there. And so that's a pretty simple way to do it, but it's a very important way.
Yeah. Well, I get this is, I think what we're talking about here, a lot of what we're talking about here today, Deb, is about how we can empower ourselves. If we're being, depression and darkness can kind of, um, depress, literally kind of press you down is what I'm trying to say. If you allow it to. And so that means we have, as we talk about many times, you're especially good at this. You got to take responsibility for your own health,
Right.
and, uh, and so this is something that we can do with, in coordination, in conversation with our doctors or oncologists, whoever it may be, about doing something. So you got light therapy, we got vitamin D. Something else that I think has been known to be helpful for people dealing with this combination of SAD and cancer is movement. And
Yes.
uh, move your body, even if it's around the house, if you can.
Go up and down your stairs. Do whatever.
Yeah, do whatever you need to do. Just even modest physical activity
Mhm.
helps. And so, some people get used to, and I spend a lot of time in a chair talking to people and Zoom calls and things of that nature. But I have a little reminder on my watch that says get up and walk around once in a while. And so that pops up, that alarm pops up. I think the same thing with people with cancer. And if you allow it to, you can go to a dark place where you just turn on the TV and you've got a dark room and TV, and that's about
And
it.
you
And
hunker down, right? We hibernate.
oh,
And
yeah, that's the word I've been looking for. Way to go.
well,
Yeah,
but we're not bears, folks.
right.
We still need to do those things, and I tell you, it is awful easy to stay in that nice, comfy, cozy, warm bed, right?
Yeah,
But try keep the same sleep patterns. If you only sleep 7 hours a night in the summer, then try to only sleep 7 hours a night in the winter.
right,
And it's natural, it gets dark, your body goes, "Okay, it's time to go to bed." But, stay up and read, talk to people, Zoom, watch TV, do whatever, but try and keep as close to the same sleep patterns that you have during the summer.
right. Well, and even if you're doing something that's doesn't require a lot, like watching TV, whatever, you can still move. I know my wife Debbie will often watch TV by being on the treadmill or walking around the room, just moving around the room, even if she's watching TV, and that's a good thing too. I've looked up a little bit of information about this. The JMA, the Journal of Internal Medicine, says that even as little as 15 minutes of walking or movement in an hour
Mhm,
per day was associated with a 26% decrease in depression and is related to cancer and survivors. Uh, that's very important that we manage our depression and
mhm.
that type of thing. So
Right.
that's good.
And if say you're watching network TV, so just a regular TV program that has
Hmm.
commercials, when the ads are on, get up.
Yeah.
Even if you're just standing, so you stand for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you sit back down, you watch more of the program. Next time the commercials come on, get back up. And maybe walk around your chair, walk around the room. We all laugh that, those are good times for the kitchen and the bathroom. But get up every time there are commercials.
Yeah. That's one good strategy. I love that. Read someplace in the research we did for this podcast about people coming up with what some people call a winter toolkit. And that is things that you can do or be about to help you to deal with sad or other depressed states. It might include scheduling a phone call with a friend or a relative or a neighbor, kind of a schedule. We're going to talk once a week for 30 minutes, whatever it is, just to,
Mhm,
you know, shoot the breeze, whatever it would be just to do that. Maybe you have a light therapy routine where you just say, I'm going to spend 10 minutes in front of the window or 10 minutes reading under a lamp or something like that. Or maybe it is doing some things that are beyond comfort, but involve some activity, like walking around the room, like we talked about, or making sure the activities aren't just, consuming another bag of chips or whatever it is. Or maybe it's, even more direct, like being a part of support group or therapy sessions and things of
right.
this. The idea is to be kind of prepared for winter, especially, I knew of at least one person in my ministry who was really pretty debilitated by sad disorder,
Mhm,
and they really couldn't function very well, and they had to be very
right.
intentional with therapy
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
to help to deal with it. So I think the idea is to have a plan, have a strategy. What do you think about that?
I think the other thing that we wanna add to that list is to laugh.
Ah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
Whether it's TV, whether it's talking with your friends, reading a book, whatever it is, laugh, because that, as we know, as we talk about all the time, that is so beneficial.
yeah. Oh, so much. And just, we can be so absorbed in negative thoughts, the blues, whatever you want to call it, that we have to be intentional about that kind of thing too. As you said, make it a part of our personal therapy, whether it's watching a particular TV show or getting a Netflix comedian on there, whatever. Or when you talk to that friend, maybe you make sure you tell some funny story or whatever, some family story. I know we we,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
you laugh.
There you go. And, yeah, we if we got good stuff going on here and, uh but just I guess it's just about being intentional about this. This is what we talk about a lot, Do not be a prisoner to your sadness,
Mhm. Right.
Take control of your life, including your mental, spiritual, and physical and emotional health. And we know that laughter helps. It just did. And just that. And let's beat sad with glad. What do you think about that?
I love it.
You know, some
Definitely.
some
Be looking at those things for gratitude.
Yeah, because we talk about turn the grim to grins. Maybe we could have, turn your sad uh, to glad.
Glad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me throw a curveball at you here, Deb.
All
I'm
right.
doing some of the research here. I was something surprised me a little bit. There is a condition that some people have that the unexpected thing that can happen is some people have sad seasonal affective disorder in the summertime too, but
Mhm.
for kind of for different reasons. And it's even called summer pattern sad, and it's characterized by some of the same things we talked about before: insomnia, agitation, anxiety, sluggishness. But it's often triggered by the fact that other people are able to do some things that we can't do.
Yeah.
Maybe going swimming or going outside or just
Mhm. Right.
going out the shorts and going out shorts and a t-shirt, and other, we can't do that. Whatever it would be, people are affected by that, and that kind of goes with self-image, that when people go through things with cancer, sometimes we think we're kind of less than, or especially if you've had old surgery or some other treatment, that causes something physical to happen to you. Okay, give me your
Right.
reaction. Do you think that can happen? Kind of the
Oh, yeah.
summer.
Oh, definitely. And especially where you can't participate in the things that maybe you did in the past.
Hmm.
And it's easy then to start feeling sorry for ourselves, to kind of jump on that pity party train. And so, the important thing is to recognize, okay, well, I'm not able to walk 2 miles a day. I just can't do that right now,
Yeah.
but I'm going to walk to the end of the block. It's not in any of this. It's not an all or nothing.
Right. Well, I think, it's so easy to kind of buy into the narrative that how we feel physically and how we may look or appear physically is what it's all about. There's some people who give cancer treatments who gain a lot of weight. Some people lose a lot of
Right.
weight. There's any number of things that can happen. We can easily buy into kind of that body image type of thing
Right.
if we allow it to. And I just think I just wanted to kind of mention that as another kind of side of this whole thing because it really has to do with understanding our bodies and our health and our mental health and our mindset, all these type of things come into play, and they can be impacted by outside forces. Hey, winter happens every year, right? And
Mhm.
so we got
Mhm.
to figure that out. So one of the things I want to say is that if we deal with sad seasonal affective disorder or the depressed state that cancer can bring, um, we just simply do not have to be defeated by it. It's a
Right.
choice that if we're going to be defeated by it or not. And we have to treat it, kind of like the physical aspects of our cancer, whether it be by
Mhm.
chemotherapy or surgery or whatever. I think we have to be intentional about treating our sad
Mhm.
situations accordingly. And I think, that's what we're here to do, try to be helpful, right? Helping
Right.
people
Right.
to deal with it.
And it is serious enough. Talk to your medical team. Let them know what's going on. They can't read your minds. And sometimes it might need something more. You might need to, you mentioned, join a support group. You might need a counselor,
Mhm.
things like that. And again, there is nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the healing process.
Right. Well, one of the things I want to say is also, Deb, that one of the big reasons we started this podcast 30 something years ago is for this very reason. The people have had sadness in their life, depression, things like that. And that you have to be intentional about saying, okay, I'm not going to be defeated by this. We're going to do something about it.
Yep.
So when we say cancer in comedy, cancer is kind of the impact, not only the physical cancer, but everything comes with it, the depressed state, all the bad news, that kind of stuff. You got to deal with that reality, but we can choose. And the comedy is not just, giggle at a laugh out loud, but it is also a state of mind, to have
Right.
some gratitude in your life, and that this whole show exists to prove that we do not have to be a prisoner of the dark stuff. And that's not what we're about. And that but the dark stuff and laughter and light are part of our human experience, that we can coexist with that. And I just want to encourage people in that way. Don't stay dark,
Right.
go to the light, and and you do not have to be uh, sad about it. You can be glad about it. What do you think?
I love it. I love it. And yeah, give yourself the grace to feel what
Yeah,
it is that you're feeling
give
and
yourself
then
the
go
credit
on.
and go on. I love it.
Mhm. Right. Well, as we said, one of the things that can help with this is to laugh. So now it's time for another one of Dr. Brad's bad jokes of the day. Lifter uppers, let's now turn to Dr. Brad's Faith It or Break It segment. Well, lifter uppers, this brings us to the close of this episode of the Cancer and Comedy podcast with Dr. Brad Miller. Cancer and Comedy is all about telling uplifting stories of people like you who are kicking cancer's butt with healing through hope and humor. You can join those of us who are turning the grim into a grin by telling us your uplifting story. Just go to cancerandcomedy.com/voice message. Well, that's all for now. Please join us next time on Cancer and Comedy. And if you like what you hear, please pass this podcast on to someone in your life who needs to turn their grim into a grin. For Dr. Brad Miller, I'm Deb Krier, reminding you that a cheerful heart is good medicine.